Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham is one of India's premier top-ranked universities which focuses on transforming lives through learning, research and innovation. The university was established 19 years ago in the year 2003 and has made significant achievements in a short time. Education for life, education for living. Amrita University is guided by the thoughtfulness of our Chancellor, Amma, who laid down the philosophy of education for life by placing equal stress on education for a living. It is this vision that led to the establishment of a vast network of educational institutions that provide modern education while imparting the traditional values. While the pursuit of academic excellence forms the core of Amrita's success, it also undertakes the responsibility to shape the whole character of youngsters with love, care, and compassion. The university is headquartered at the foothills of the Western Ghats in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, and has 5 other campuses spread across South India in Amritapuri, Kerala, Kochi, Kerala, Bengaluru, Karnataka, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, and Mysore, Karnataka. The university will soon launch its new campuses in Amravati, Andhra Pradesh, Faridabad, Delhi, NCR. Our inspiration, a renowned humanitarian leader and spiritual leader, Amba is the Chancellor and guiding light of Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. Amma's concept of education, stress on research, and commitment to instilling universal values have come together to shape Amrita into an institution where the latest achievements and discoveries combined with compassion and service-mindedness. As Amma said in 2010, when the State University of New York presented her with an honorary doctorate in humane letters. Rankings. The multi-campus, multidisciplinary research establishment is ranked as 5th best university in India 2021 by National Institutional Ranking Framework, NIRF. We have also been accorded the status of Institute of Eminence, IOE, by the Ministry of Education, Government of India. A testament to our pursuit of excellence is the NAC A++ accreditation score, the highest possible. NAC accreditation measures universities for excellence in curricular aspects, teaching, learning and evaluation, research, innovations and extension, infrastructure and learning resources, student support and progression, governance, leadership and management, institutional values and best practices, global impact and international collaborations. Among the private educational institutions in the country, Amrita has entered into MOUs and collaborations with more than 450 leading universities around the globe. Students also benefit from our relations with industries and interactions with top management of multinational companies. These collaborations facilitate student exchange programs, student visits, industrial training, and project guidance under reputed corporate entities. Placements. Placements at Amrita have always been best in class, with students usually having more than 1 job offer. Some students have up to 3 job offers by the end of their course from reputed MNCs, be it engineering, management, life sciences, arts or sciences. Amrita is a place where the world's best companies look for talent. More than 200 companies visit the campus every year, and the average salary offered to our students is 5.8 lakh per annum. Meanwhile, the highest package offered is 56.95 lakh per annum, and the highest stipend for internship is rupees 80,000 per month. Amrita's Technology Business Incubator, TBI, is a non-profit supported by the Government of India that funds, mentors, and nurtures ideas by startups and entrepreneurs. It focuses on developing innovations in the areas of information technology, cybersecurity, networking, social media, and more. The TBI startups have obtained multiple awards and recognition, both from India and across the globe. Till date, TBI has incubated more than 75 startups and mentored 216 startup ideas with 0% loss from investments. It funds up to 1 crore rupees per startup and has opened up many more funding options through its partnership with venture capital firms and angel investor networks. Amrita TBI is one of the only 6 incubators selected to be world-class under Niti Aayog's Atal Innovation Mission. Campus life, a home away from home. At Amrita, we believe in a holistic approach towards our students' development. To augment students' classroom learning, all campuses provide students with digital and central libraries, quiet study centers, seminar halls, e-learning studios, computer labs, and campus-wide free Wi-Fi. The university encourages both indoor and outdoor sports and games, and there are world-class swimming pools, gymnasiums, stadiums, and games arenas. Various clubs cater to the artistic and scientific minds of the students. If you look around all of Amrita's campuses, you will see the prevailing educational environment is in communion with nature. The sand, the seas, and the sky define the backdrop of these temples of learning. It vibrates with an energy of togetherness and encourages us to live in harmony with everything around us, including a unity within ourselves. This setting is suited to instill both learners and the learned with the courage and wisdom to face the challenges of life. The campus at Ettimani is considered India's most picturesque. It is like an oasis in a desert. What started out as a barren landscape underwent a miraculous transformation through the university's tree planting project. Today, there are more than 1 lakh trees growing there, the most extensive collection in number and species on a university campus in South India. The Live-in Labs program originated from Amma's idea to bridge the rural and urban divide by sending university students to remote villages in India to understand the everyday difficulties faced by people living there. The program is designed to be a multidisciplinary real-life learning experience offered to both international participants and Amrita University's faculty and students. The lab's objective is to expose youths to day-to-day problems faced in rural communities with a 2-week to 6-month periods of live-in internships in Indian villages. It also aims to inspire them to dedicate the knowledge and skills they acquired at university to help develop practical, cost-effective solutions to the challenges faced by the villages. Researchers at Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham partner with senior scientists at world's leading research universities to innovate new ideas and invent new products, applying existing technology towards solving some of the world's most pressing problems, from disaster management to assuring access to education and the management and cure of diseases. This effort reflects in Amrita's national and international research rankings. India's first UNESCO Chair on Women's Empowerment and Gender Equality. Empowerment through Innovation and Technology. The Center for Women Empowerment and Gender Equality is a research-focused academic center for promoting gender equality and fostering women's empowerment with a special focus on using technology and other innovative methods. This center will offer diverse courses in key focus areas, pilot radical ideas, and collaborate with leading universities and institutions. The Amala Bharadam campaign, ABC, Clean India campaign was a program pioneered by Amrita, aimed at improving public health and restoring India's physical beauty. The project was launched in 2010 during Amma's 57th birthday celebrations, and through this campaign, volunteers undertake periodic cleaning of roads, markets, temples, government offices, and hospitals. As a part of this campaign, garbage was sorted and either recycled or properly disposed of. Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, along with Kerala's Prisons and Correctional Services and Tamil Nadu Prison Department, initiated Amrita Yoga classes and IIM Technique meditation sessions in 2018 to address and transform the physical, mental, and emotional health of prison inmates. Our goal is to teach yoga and meditation techniques to help the prison inmates become more self-aware. They learn to breathe with awareness and manage emotions through these exercises. Ours is a changing world. It needs people who can adapt to change, with minds that can expand and include change, and yet hold human-friendly values that can withstand all changes. Which is why the world needs education that shapes the minds of these people, and which is why the world needs Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. Education for life, education for living. A university where future is driven by imagination. Experiential learning creates diverse opportunities, where industry exposure and international partnerships help you sail. Come, start your journey towards success with Amrita University.
There's a place where the best minds come together, work to end inequalities, work towards transforming lives. This is a place recognized as one of the world's best universities. This is Amrita, now ranked among the top 100 universities in the world and ranked number 1 in India. Amrita University.
There's a reason why we pick up the highest grades nationally and internationally, year after year after year. That reason is you. Now, with an A++ accreditation from NAC and consistent rankings among the top universities in NIRF, Amrita, we get recognized because you must.
A warm good evening all. Welcome to day 4 of AI and Robotics free certification course. Today we will be discussing about Python for AI and ML. For this, we are having our special guest, Mr. Alang Harshavardhan, who currently working with Google, and also who was the alumni of Amrita Coimbatore CSE batch 2020. So before getting into the session, students, if you have any queries, you can just type it in our chat box. We will discuss it at the end of the session. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Alang Harshavardhan to today's session. Over to you, Mr. Alang. You are not audible. Yeah. Now it's...
Sorry for the typo. It's Balanagu. So yeah, it's Balanagu Harshavardhan. Hi. Let me just quickly share what I had. Just a moment.
So students, our speaker is facing some technical issue. He will join with us soon. Yeah, he's here. Yeah, you can share your screen right now.
You able to see my screen?
Yeah, yeah.
So about me, quickly, I'm a 2020 graduate from Amrita. I was in computer science branch. One thing that I hold dearly with me is that my work in Amuda lab. I worked with a professor called Vidya Balsubramaniam. We worked in research. We worked on research work in ambient sensing. And from right out of college, I joined Microsoft as an SDE. 2 years down the lane now, I have made a switch to Google, and I'm currently working in Google right now. I'm in my office, still yet to log out. Yeah, so that's me. About me, if you want to ask. And let me just start with this: GitHub and open source. How many of you are aware of it? Oh, I think I cannot get live answers at this from the Zoom call, but basically GitHub is one such platform where a lot of people start their own projects, be it and open source. They go hand in hand. GitHub allows people to contribute to other open source projects. And to be precise, what open source means is that just that the code is readily available to everyone, and anyone can just fork it, and you can contribute to that and submit as a pull request, and that gets reviewed by the owners of that repository, and it gets merged. This is what basically it means for open source contributions. You hear this a lot during the month of October, when Hacktober happens and you get all the goodies. I am not sure if you have heard it, but it's something of a Christmas of its own for all those who are in software. And so these two things are something which is very important that everyone has to know. And this is my segue to take you into why Python, because Python is open sourced. You can see the how it's written and how it works. And what's Python? So it's one of the high level programming languages, you know. Okay, and it's just like any other programming language, be it C, C++, Java, or Python. Python just allows you to give instructions to your PC to run something. In short, it's basically that, right? You're giving instructions to something which doesn't know what to do, and you're telling it how to do it. This is one such language in which you can communicate with your computer, right? And why should you learn Python? Why are we talking so much about Python for AI and ML and not something like, well, let's talk about C for AI and ML? Why are we not doing that? Why are we concentrating more on Python? Let's look at a few factors why one should first learn Python, and then we will figure out why people are crazy about it in the fields of AI and ML. So let's see a little bit of magic. I just want to quickly go through some amount of slides before we jump right into the applications of Python. So for those who are in 12th and who have computer science in their, basic programming in their curriculum, you would know something called as quicksort. And it's basically a sorting algorithm. For those who are not aware, it's basically a sorting algorithm saying that if I just gave you a random bunch of numbers, now just sort it based on the value, this is one of the programs which will allow you to do it. Let's not go into the complexities of how fast it is and all that, but it's generally considered one of the best sorting algorithms out there. And this is the right side. The snippet which you're seeing is a snapshot for Java, like how much you have to write for to implement this particular program in Java. And it's pretty high, right? Like, although it's as amazing as it is more lines of code. And obviously, for software developers, the lines of code written might be a very good impact. Like it's one of the criteria where people judge like how much work you have done, but not as a student or as someone who is trying to learn something. Less is more. So now let's see how the quicksort in Python works. This is all that you have to write for quicksort. So basically that huge snippet of code which you wrote in Java, that's equivalent to this. So you do this and the quicksort will be sorted for all of those, like basically it will sort the given array to it. So that's the magic of Python, that you don't have to write long lines of code. And if you see that these are like basically human sentences that you are writing for X in something. If it is, do this. If so, if is it, if it is in. So all the words that are, all the syntax that we follow in Python are very human friendly, and it feels like you're just writing a sentence rather than writing a program. Although not true, you have a lot of rules in which you have to do. People make a lot of jokes about the syntax for it, or having the right indentation, otherwise it cries a lot, all that things. But the magic of Python is that less is more. Basically it allows you to do more with lesser number of lines. And I'll simply put, if I have to if I have to just give you 4 reasons why you should learn Python, it would be these. First thing is, it's easier to learn and use. There's no doubt that anything in the beginning will be tougher, but compared to all the other programming languages out there, even after working with quite some languages, I have so far worked with C# when I was in Microsoft, and over here we worked a lot with Golang basically, and or any other thing per matter, even Java. Out of all these, one thing I love is Python. Personally, also, I use that Python programming language in all my interviews. I never used, a lot of people also use C++, but I used Python in all our interviews, and they were generally accepted. Some companies might not do it, but most of them do accept Python as a programming language in their interviews. The second thing is amazing community. If you see the number of open source, yeah, that's the third point. But amazing community is when what I'm talking about is in this GitHub, or say, for example, where do you go if you have some issues? Generally, for a software developer, you go to SO, which is Stack Overflow. You will see amazing communities out there. You have to just type something if you have a doubt, and more often than not, you'll find a solution for it on Stack Overflow. That's the kind of community it's built around the Python, that it's very deeply discussed. A lot of people who are very experienced get into this, and they answer others' queries. They give better solutions. Just as an example, if you go to Lead Code today, which is a coding platform, if you go over there and say, for example, you tried some programming question, basically something in CP, like competitive programming you are doing, and you figured out that you were not able to solve one of those problems. You just saw the tab for Python. There will be 100 different ways you can do the same thing, and each of them are amazing on its own. The best codes that I have learned are in those discussions, at least during my undergrad. So amazing community, which is always open and which is always very active. At some point or the other, I'm pretty sure that if you have a doubt in Python and you post your question on Stack Overflow today morning, by afternoon you'll have 10 different replies, if not at least one. Yeah. So sorry. Yeah. The third thing is a blockbuster open source packages. If you want to do anything, okay, I'll talk to you about what are these open source packages in briefly. So every package, what is a program? It's basically a set of instructions, right? And you don't have to do from scratch everything. Say, for example, you want to find square root of something. You don't have to write the algorithm for how to do square root, right? You'll just import a package, and then you do math.sqrt in Python, and then you get that, right? So how are these work? These are basically these open source packages which are already written for you. So you can just import those packages and use the functionalities available by them. So these open source packages are numerous in number for Python. It'll be funny to even explain that I'm pretty sure I've seen this in other open source package, like similar to how Python has, you have something called as NuGet for C# or .NET. You have NPM for all the node modules when you're coming to JavaScript. So there is a NPM package called isTrue. So similarly, you would have something, is even. And similarly, you would have some open source packages in Python to check if a number is even or odd as well. So although it's just created for fun, but what I'm trying to say here is that there are open source packages for everything, which do a lot of heavy lifting for you when it comes to AI and ML, or even in general as well. But since today's our topic is about AI and ML and the Python's role in it, there are a lot of, we will go through some of the famous packages that are out there for Python, but basically you'll have a lot of support from these packages that you don't need to write code from scratch. You just have to import them and use their functionalities to achieve what you want. A lot of these also comes up, like if you are into LinkedIn, you would have seen a lot of posts that I'm seeing these days are about this, where the invisibility blanket, just put it on you and you will disappear. So how do they do it? It's basically a green screen, but who is doing, how are people doing it? It's basically probably just a few lines of code using OpenCV, which is just removing you when it's a green screen basically. So even that OpenCV that I'm talking about, it's again an open source package that you can just import and use its functions to get what you want. And the last and the final, it's loved by the AIML community. I can't stress this point enough, because for everything that you want to do, be it cleaning your data, or right from there, if you want to learn, train your model, if you want to predict your model, or you want to see how your model is performing against some data which is not seen so far, or if you have a whole set of data, how do you want to split it? How do you want to test it? There are all these number of ways in which you have to, build your models and train them and use them and derive metrics from them. For at every point of an ML or AI workflow, you will find that there is a package for you to help you. So that's the love that the AI and ML community gives to it. And let us see what other roles that Python take up. The first thing, obviously, which comes to mind is web development. Like it's used everywhere, right? So I'm just giving you some of the examples that where it is used. I personally have used Flask in my internship at Microsoft. So it's basically to wrap around your service as a web. Sorry, someone talking? Okay. So Flask allows you to wrap your service around it, and say, for example, you have written a function and you want to expose that as a service, you can use Flask for it. You can use Django, Pyramid. These are all different frameworks that are built on top of Python, which allows you to do web development. In game development, these are all the various games. This I have found. I have not personally used Pygame, but it seems awesome. And you can, using Pygame, you can create a lot of these games. And this is their homepage, which was taken quite some time back, but this is some of the different games that are created using Python Pygame package. In machine learning and artificial intelligence, so it's always a competition between TensorFlow and PyTorch. TensorFlow, as some of you might know, it's a product inside Google, and that is always in competition, stiff competition with PyTorch. So these are two different frameworks which help you build, run, test, and export your models, and helps you to create these machine learning and AI models which will help you in your projects. So those are two frameworks that are heavily like competing with each other. And there are a lot more projects in different categories. And again, when it comes to the question of why, it boils down to two things. One thing is community support. If you are stuck, say for example, today in TensorFlow, while you are using some functionality of TensorFlow and you got stuck with it, there is more often than not that someone else also might have faced it and given a better solution or explanation for that problem. And ease of use, you will love it when you use it. So basically, a lot of heavy lifting, since it is done for you, you just have to call that function and it returns it for you. And let's see some of the ways in companies, some of these companies, how they are using Python and for what they are using. So Instagram is using Python to some extent. It's the largest deployment of the Django web framework. If you remember, in one of the previous slides, I have told you about the frameworks on web development. Django is one of them, and Instagram is one of the largest deployments of Django web framework, which is entirely written in Python end to end. And the next thing is Google. That this is a very nice statement by Sagi and Larry, saying that Python where we can, C++ where we must. So even the early adopters, like early engineers in Google, preferred Python whenever it was possible. And Spotify does the same thing. A lot of backend consists of interdependent services, but connected by its own messaging protocol called as 0MQ, which is again based out of all the services. Most of the services that are written that are in these are again written in Python. And even Netflix developers turned to Python due to its succinct and unclear yet expressive syntax, which, yeah, this is one of the other statement at Netflix. So why am I showing you all these examples is that these are not just for you learning or playing around or toying around. These are actual frameworks, very serious frameworks that all these tech giants are using, not just because it's easy, but it's also easy. It's all obviously it's easier than the other frameworks, but at the same time they offer very rich functionality as well. Now let's talk about a few open source libraries that we have. Screenshot from demo is as well in this. Let's go through them. So these are some of the popular and pip libraries in Python. So NumPy is something which is called I'll obviously share these slides with you so you can have a view at what each of it does. And NumPy is basically a package which will help you to deal with numbers. So be it getting data. NumPy will help you to clean your data as well. Even pandas helps you to import your data, like all your Excels and all. It's just panda.read CSV will read you all the CSV and put it into a data frame. So from there you can provide these data frames into another modules which will take up this and train models and things like that. Keras is again used for AI and artificial neural networks. Beautiful Soup is something that we used it at Amrita in one of our labs that we had. It's used for web scraping. Basically, if you want to search for, say for example, I want to know the top news from all the websites. I have the website links. I just want to know the top news. So you can feed that URLs into an array and just give it to the Beautiful Soup and ask it to scrape all the text from it. So it will go into that on your behalf, scroll through it, scroll to the web page and get the text from it, and it will assemble it for you to use that in your next model, or you just want it. If you just want it, then you can get the text from it. So Beautiful Soup is one such thing. Using Beautiful Soups, a lot of demos could be made. Say, for example, if you want your own widget from it and you don't want to use any APIs, you can actually go to a better website and scrape the data from it and display it on your widget. So now Beautiful Soup is one such framework which allows you to do something called as web scraping. NLTK is natural language toolkit, which helps you to use for all your NLP use cases, natural language processing use cases, be it if you want to get a word and trim out all the is and all that. It's very hard for you to write or have a string of things which are common. And okay, before I go into that, usually how NLP workflow works is that you take a paragraph and then you see that what are the things which will make sense from this. Is, the, and, it, the, to, from, all these things might not add much meaning to the entire paragraph as a whole. So the common thing which is done in NLP is that you will strip out all those data and you just have the keywords in it for you to train on top of it. You could use that NLTK. From NLTK, you have tools for it, basically functions in that library that you could use to do this. Also, what you could do is, say for example, running, sitting. That ing is not actually what the meaning is. It's sit or run, or these are something called as root words. So obviously, it is very difficult for us to write all the kind of root word mapping that you need, right? Like you cannot have a dictionary which just say that running is the root word is run, like that and all. So NLTK takes care of it, and it will try to get the root word from the given word it is, so that we can use that to train your models again. Gensum is another package which is used for supervised and unsupervised learning, which is basically you don't know what the data is about, but you just want to learn some thing and you want to find out patterns in the data or in the data points, or you want to separate some things. Basically unsupervised learning, it's learning on its own based on some methods that we define. So Gensum is one such library which will help you do that. This is all the libraries. So image processing. So I don't have the demo running in my laptop. I had it the last time I took this up. I had it running up and I could show a live demo, but I still have a screenshot from it. I'll just show you that and I'll explain you how it does it. So this is something called, this is very basic. So whenever you look at a video about image processing, if you want to start with it, so all these fields, right, it comes under AI and ML only. These are all subparts of it or categories in it. So image processing specifically, the first thing which you'll come across is MNIST dataset. So it's used for recognizing digits. You could use this. We had this very interesting approach that a lot of you. So basically in Amrita or any other college, we tick and you correct your exam papers and you write your how many marks you got in the first page of it. And there's usually someone who is looking at it and entering it and digitizing it. So instead of that, we wanted to make it so something like this, you could use it for recognizing digits in it and automatically uploading it for that. So we could use this model that we create to recognize the digits, and then later, so these are not standalone things. You will use this model, the result of this model, as an input to another model maybe. So these are pipelines that basically you build usually for these projects which use a lot of AI and ML models. So this is used for recognizing digits, and you could do it using real time using camera. So basically it's again Python provides you a lot of packages which connects with your camera, the input camera that you attach to your device, and it reads frame by frame, like you'll say 24 fps, so frames per second. So those 24 you can read every frame of it and see that what it is. And basically what it does is, this is how it works. So you take your camera, it's 24 frames per second, but so it's basically clicking 24 photos in a second, and it's sending up to your model. And in each of those frame is basically a photo. For each of those photo, it's going to mark a square about around that digit, and it's going to tell what the digit is about, and it's going to tell you what digit about it is, and it will stream it on your other window, which basically clubs all those 25 frames, and it will show you as a video. So it's like your camera, in middle a model which is adding some stuff to that images, and it gets streamed to that. So that's the workflow in which it works. Yeah. So this was me some probably around 8-9 months back, where I was showcasing a demo for another set of people. It's basically this. I was holding a picture, a paper where I written 4 on it, and I was showing to the camera. On the left hand side, you can see that it was able to filter out, get the square properly, and highlight me it is trying to invert it so that it's trying to highlight the lines in it, and it's on top of it a machine learning model is running, which tells that what exactly that is, and it says that it is 4. You can see in the top it says that it's 4, and this is the actual thing that it's concerned. Like basically it got it like from this only, it understood it's 4, and then it puts it back into the image saying that, hey, this is what the image that I'm worried about, and it's basically 4. So this is that. And then visualization. So let me walk through this whole process of how, if you want to develop a machine learning model, how usually it happens, the basic ones, how it happens. Since this is a session oriented at getting you started with AI and ML Python, I'll let you know the usual route in which it happens. So first, it's data, right? You take data, you collect data from Kaggle or any other sources, or you make your own data. Even that is possible. You make your own data in some standard form, be it CSV or Excel or any other format in which you can collect, and you try to get that data into your program. So using that stage is where libraries like Pandas helps you to import the data into data frames, and and then on top of it you can run your next steps. So that is one thing. So first, getting your data right, you'll get the data into your program. Now, do you think all the data will be always correct, or you might not miss some states in it, right? So there is something called as cleaning of your data. So say for example, if you are concerned about say for example, you are creating a model for if a customer is coming to me in my shop and he's going to buy something, what's the accuracy, like what's the probability that he will buy this particular thing? So this is a basic use case, right? Like if a person is coming into it, what's that that person might buy this item or not. So things like that. So you might be considering to collect some data items about like what time is the person coming in, like what's the age of that person, how far is he coming from. Just I'm saying vaguely out on top of my mind. So or what's the average spend value, and what are the items that are taken. So these things and all you will collect it from that. That's the collection of the data part. And sometimes you might not have all the fields, right? You might not know ages of some people. They don't disclose it to you. So these are the things that are called as missing data or bad data. So not necessarily that it's not totally unusable, but you have to do something. So say for example, you have to average out the all the ages and fill up with the average age. It might not make sense if it's a very one, if you see in terms of one row, but on a whole, when you are considering about 1 lakh customers, you had a very good shop and you had 1 lakh customers in your shop, it would eventually make sense, right? So you're taking all this data and then you're cleaning it up. So this is called cleaning. It's a very important state wherein you will clean your data so that you are ready to feed it to the model. Now again, before you feed it to the model, how would you know that how is your model performing? If you are showing all the data to it, it's just going to say that, hey, I saw this video, this is how much is going to shop for, right? So this is not how it works, right? So for it to see some unknown data, either you do two things. If you have more data coming in, train everything on the current data and test it on the future data. But if you already have some set of data already collected and you want to see how better your model is doing, then what do? So you basically take your data, split them into something called as training and testing set. Again, here there are multiple ways you can do it. So one thing is normal, say for example, 80-20 split. So 80% of your data you're going to use to train, and 20% of the data, and 20% of the data you're going to park it aside so that you can test how good your model is doing based on the 20%. Now you have done that. Another way it could be like, say for example, I have like 100 records. I am oversimplifying it, but you put it into 10 parts. And you just say that first part I'm going to store it for testing, and the rest 9 parts I'm going to train on it, and I'll test it on the 10th part. I'll note down the results. Now I will clear all its memory. Second part, now the rest 8 parts, like 1, 3, 4, and so on till 10, all the parts I'm going to use for training, and the second part alone I'll hold it so that I can test on it. So you will do it for all the 10 items, and then you will going to collect all the results from it, and then you take an average of it, and then you see how well your their model is getting trained. Like how good is your model? This is what I explained you, basically something called as k-fold. K is the number of parts you have for the entire data. So these are the sampling methods. Like how do you want to differentiate your entire data into test data and train data? Okay, now you have decided on how you want to do that. So now you have some test train data and some test data. Now what happens? This is the place where you use a lot of you can use a lot of different types of machine learning models that are available out there. One very powerful thing, which even as everyone has, like even those who have invented it doesn't know how it works, but if you give enough data, a neural network seems to have figured out how one thing works in a very good fashion with very good high percentage of chance with enough data. So neural networks is one such method in which you can train your models. Other than that, if you're talking about categorizing your things, categorizing your data points into groups, then again there is something called as k-means, or there is KNN, you call it k nearest neighbors. So these are different types of models which you use to figure out that this is the model part. So you have your data, you feed that into your model, and the output will come as a prediction. So basically it's a model that gets trained. It's basically a mathematical model which you can again pass the test data and see what it sees. So that's the thing. So now that you have trained your model using one of the existing ones, or you write your own neural network, or you either use one of the existing machine learning models, and you feed the data in it and it runs for it. So you will first obviously will understand how things work. So just to explain on top of my mind, if I have to nearest neighbors, then I'll say that if I imagine the entire graph is there with all the data points, so 18 age, spent 3,000, bought these things in an n-dimensional plane. So what you're going to see when a new data point comes up, you will see where does it fit and what are the number of nearest neighbors. If I'm saying k equal to 3, what are the number of I'll just see the what are the nearest neighbors of it for k values, and then I'll categorize that as part of that. So I'll say probably these are the high paying customers. So then if I put it in that, and out of 5, 3 of them are high paying customers, they're more likely than not this new customer is also a high paying customer. So that's how KNN kind of works. So similarly, you have other models you can look it up saying that how they work, but basically at the end of the day, they give you out a mathematical model which can take in new data and give its prediction to you. Now that is done. Now how do you save this model? How do you deploy it? And how do you use that in a project? So now that is where it comes that you call something called as pickle file. Basically these models, the output of these models is basically a pickle. You can export these models as a pickle file and run that pickle file wherever you want. So one such amazing library is Docker. If you are aware, you can just say that you can write your Python program, and on top of, I have in the library section, I spoke about something called as Flask, right? So you can expose it as an API, and in that API, API is basically saying that, hey, from anywhere, just call me with this URL, www.google.com, like something like that. You will have one more URL. Hit me this URL with this data, and I'll give you my prediction from that. So you will expose a URL and you will get the input data from the URL, like basically be it query parameter, or if it's a post, if you're aware of it, then there's a payload data. So you get the data from it and you will give it to that pickle file. So these pickle files are basically that all the knowledge that you gain from your training, it will be saved in it. And so you don't have to retrain every time there is a new test that is coming up, right? So all you have to do is you'll just learn whatever the knowledge that you have gained, you stored it in that pickle file. You will just read that pickle file and the model will be up and running, ready to accept any new requests. So now you take up this data from the payload or from the query parameters. It's completely for another day, but yeah, you basically get the request and send it to this model and it will give you an output and you return it back. And why am I telling this Docker? So that once you create this Docker, something called as container, it's basically a program which could run anywhere. So you can deploy it to some cloud, Google Cloud, Azure, AWS, whatever, and then you can deploy it and you can expose it to any projects, to anyone basically, obviously behind some authentication protocol. So here what I'm showing you is visualization, which is coming at the end stage where you have already trained all your models and now you want to see how much accurate it is. So even for these, there are various different libraries which will help you to do with it. So it'll using these libraries, what you can do is you will excuse me. Yeah, using these libraries, you can understand how well your accuracy has come up as and when it's training. So say, for example, in your k-fold, like every time it's learning new things, how better is it getting? So things like that can be recorded and said that, hey, this particular thing is so and so accurate. So here it's called as training and validation. So training is where while during training itself, this much accuracy it was getting, and the validation is when you're using test data and doing it. Similarly for the loss curves again. So things like this, the plots will tell you about how basically your model is performing. So last thing is, I just spoke about the MNIST that demo, which I couldn't show in the live, but that demo, basically you can go through this GitHub repository where it will tell you how to set up and run that. Obviously I'll share the link with you and then you can try it out for yourself and see how amazing this very simple, you can go through the code and understand how simple it has become because of the use of all these libraries to create your first project. Now, after 35 minutes of continuous, I hope it's not ranting, but yeah. So now we have seen it all. Now it's a choice is yours. There are obviously other ways in which you can still do programming and other ways to use them in your AI and ML. But by now you should understand why Python is preferred for it and why do people use it at such a large scale. That's it. Also, it becomes I usually have this slide whenever I am talking to anyone for that matter, because I feel it's like one shape which is fitting for all. Since most of you are in +2 as I learn from Nikhil and others. So just while you are going through in career. This is not something that I'm telling you just specific to any company that you're targeting or anything that you're doing, but since we all at Amrita and we as a general, we should, it's basically education is a never ending process. You always learn new stuff, right, at any age. So always be learn it all than know it all. Don't think that you know everything. This is some gyan which is coming from me. I don't think you should see it that way, but this is something that I have learned. Some of my seniors at Amrita has told me that this is something that I stand by, and I want to be always curious and build credibility. So always be curious to learn how these things happen. When you see something and you should get that curiosity that you have to learn this. Let me see how it works under the hood, and that's how you will get to learn and explore new stuff as well. And build credibility is one thing wherein, like, as in when you do things, people should say that, hey, so and so person, if I go to him, he will have the answers for it. So that credibility that you build is something which is very important across your career. Also, the things that you have more on work, the work on it, it builds your credibility, and you have to take actions on it, actions in a way that builds credibility for you in wherever you're working or learning. Yeah, thanks for your time. I hope it was a good Thursday evening for you, for all of you. So how are we going ahead with this?
Yeah, Parvati, are you there? Just a second, I'll just call her out. So if you want to chat with the students, in chat there is a Q&A link. You can just click on that and you can see their questions, if any.
I'm not able to get any link. Can you resend it on the chat?
In Zoom chat.
Yeah, in Zoom chat, I don't. Maybe I joined a little late, and
I'll just share it.
yeah. Just a moment.
So students, you have any questions, so please put in the chat box. So he will get your questions and answer them.
Yes, let me open that Slido. Yes, I do see some questions. Yes, Manideep, through GitHub you can code through. Yeah, They have recently integrated a code editor right into the website. So yeah, we can use that to code as well. It's a good way to actually, push your projects onto GitHub, so that, usually, yeah, at this point, once you start your engineering, it's how you build a portfolio, right? Like, if you are a designer, you're going to take your designs to your clients to say that, hey, this is what I built. Similar to that, it's your GitHub profile which talks about, these are the works that I've done in the past few years. You can have a look at them if you want. Things like that. It also has options to where you can basically deploy. So there's something called as GitHub pages where you can deploy your UI as well. Good evening to a lot of people. Abhishek Achutan, GitHub link. Yeah, we will share that, I guess. Can we share the deck with the rest of us? Yeah, we will do that post the call. High level interpreter language runs the command as a whole. Yes. Yeah, these are not really questions. These are comments more, which I agree to most of the time. Internet hosting service for software and version control using Git. Yeah, you do version control using Git. So even when you want to collaborate with someone on any project, you can create a shared repository where everyone can contribute to that code. It's basically, Git is basically a versioning control system. GitHub runs on top of Git. Yeah. Okay. Now I got some new questions. Okay. Can you please explain us about the structures of Python? Nehal, I am not sure what you mean by structures of Python, but the way it works is, just as any other language, it has um, its own syntax in which you will learn how do you write an if statement, how do you write loops, how do you run functions, how do you define classes, how do you define actions in like functions inside classes and use them, how do you instantiate those classes into objects, things like this, or how do you things run different things in parallel, like thread processing. So these are all common to any programming language more often than not. So it's not specific about Python, but just as other things, you find the same things in Python, but again, it's simpler to understand and use it. You don't have to go through different things to do simple things. Thanks, Aryan. Thanks, Deepika. Again, Nehal, about structures of Python. Yeah. So Jaitilak, so basically what I do at Google is I work in an organization called as Business Applications Platform. So what we build is something called as workflow, which allows you to so now I'm moving to a new team because of a reorg that's happening internally, but basically it'll be something called as connectors, which you could use through Google Cloud Platform, which will allow you to connect to various different backends. Uh, uh, Different backends, it's called, yeah, it allows you to connect to different backends and use them in some other things. Like there's something called as integration platform where you can create your own workflows and create a nice backend for things that will happen. Like when someone hits an API, this is a workflow that I have to run. So that product is our customer. So things like that. I won't go into much of the details, but basically what we do is build connectors and show that to the users so that they can connect it to their own backends. Yeah. Scope of AI in entrepreneurship. Yeah, I see a lot of everyday news, a lot of even in the last few years, the number of unicorns have been pretty much higher than how it used to be. We have a lot of unicorns here in India, and a lot of them are based out of AI. So there's a lot of scope because since AI is still new, everyone is no one has a huge edge over the other, I would say. How do we develop, sir? Where to start exactly? So yeah, it's always a difficult thing to start, right? How do you develop? So what do you mean by develop, right? You want to build something. So how do you build something? it starts just like, how do you want to build a house, right? First, your foundations have to be strong. Then you should have your structures built, and then you try building it. So that's how you do it. You learn how you have to develop. So if it's for something related to web development, then what are the tools that I have to be familiarized with, right? So think about what are the common ways in which web development happens. Choose a thing. I'm not going to suggest you something, but just as an example, there are certain amazing stacks, something called as mean stack, MERN stack. So these are stacks is basically a set of technologies that helps you do something. So go through them and then learn each of it, and then try to create a very small project out of it. And that's when you start developing and push that into your GitHub profile. And that when you push something into GitHub profile, it gives you that green block for that day. And at the end of the day, when you share your graph with someone, that shows a lot, that talks a lot about you. So basically, how to start: just go ahead. If you want to do something, see how generally it is done in software. Go through the components, each one of them, learn to try to learn each of them. You don't need to completely learn anything. Try to learn to some extent, and then try building a small project out of it. And on the way, you will definitely learn other things, and you will improve it while you are learning, and you will create better products. Experience at Google, it's been around close to now what it's already December, so it's close to around I joined somewhere in mid April, and so far it has been great. I got to work in React so far. For those who are interested, it's basically a UX framework. It's a library, not a framework. So many people have done that mistake, but yeah, it's a library of JavaScript which helps you to create better UI. Can you just give us examples of codes in Python language? The formats, basically. Yeah, if you just want some basic code, I can just print it out and give it to you, but that's not the intent of here. So it'll just be like you install Python from python.org, and then you create a file with and save it like hello.py. For the first step, you can just say that print hello world. That's the magic words of any programming language. So just print in a print and side by open brackets, and inside that hello world, and it prints you a hello world. So it's a format. There's no format specifically. You just have your import statements in the start, and then you will have your main function if you want from there the execution to start. Otherwise, it'll just start line by line. It will consider that as your program, and it will run through everything. So after you install your Python, you can just open any file, any notepad also, it's fine, or any IDE. Usually people use IDE to write code because they help you in syntax. They help you in writing better code, auto formatting and things like that, even suggestions for you to write. So my favorite is VS Code, which is like an open source IDEs. So use that, create your files, and then you just run saying that Python hello.py, and it will run it if that helps. And the next question: what questions they ask you in interview in Google? Nice try, but obviously I can't tell you the exact questions. But they were Google generally, it's an open question at this point, that Google concentrates a lot on something called as graphs and dynamic programming, a lot of arrays. So obviously there might be some questions on arrays and things, but graphs and dynamic programming is a paradigm that's very important, and a lot of questions on graphs are also usually asked. It is a generic. I'm not going to reveal the exact question which I'm not supposed to do. Yeah. Anything that you suggest for us to start with? Sure. You can start with, if you want to start with AI and ML, go ahead and understand these different libraries that I have given with you. See some of the sample projects that people have gone through, and see the code, how they have written. Something, nothing fancy. Say, for example, if you are interested in the beautiful soup that I have asked about, so just take beautiful soup and see the examples in the documentation of the website. Search for beautiful soup in beautiful soup documentation on Google. You will go to that page and understand some of the basic things that they do. And then on top of it, if possible, build a UI on top of it and make it as a project. So things like this, it's simple UI which asks for a URL, and when I click on submit, it'll just scrape the data from the page and it'll show me in that, saying that this is the data which is present on this. So that's something simple to start with. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Okay, how to study Python language? I mean, sources of language study. Yeah, just go ahead with any of the, there are millions of tutorials out there which talks to you about the syntax. My favorite ones is always, it's about tutorials point. Tutorials point is a little old, but yeah, that does as well. And Geeks for Geeks has on their own tutorials thing. Go through them. Python documentation, I don't think it'll be developer friendly, I'm not sure, but obviously just search tutorials for beginners Python. At this point you should all know how to search on Google, and definitely that helps. And Geeks for Geeks and tutorials point, I would say. The next question that we see: are you a topper at school, Archisha, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. In Amrita, when I was graduating, in CS, in computer science, I was college 5th. So yeah, 5th rank in terms of CGPA. Yeah. Is it true that you got nice package when we have to work more? Oh, okay. If you have got nice package and you're, it's yeah, that's common. It's a common misconception. It's not directly proportional. You keep getting more money doesn't mean that you keep getting more work. It means that you are signed up for a better role, but not better role, I mean like high impact projects there, where they want you to put your full intelligence and help it to be a master blaster product, right? So it depends on the demand, things work, but it's not a direct, now as 12th you will be aware with directly proportional. It's not like as your salary keeps increasing you have to keep working more and more. Even more is again a very subjective thing. More lines of code do you mean, or you have to put in more thought? If it's about more thought, then definitely yes. If they're going to give you a better package, then definitely they expect more out of you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that now you're working 7 hours per day, you are going to work 10 hours per day. It doesn't mean a direct relation, like that it's not directly proportional to the number of hours you put in a day. That's what I would say. Okay, what to learn after mastering Python? So yeah, obviously mastering Python is a huge thing. If you have done it, great, because there's always new to learn in Python. But once you have done to some decent level, that's when you have to go one level up and understand your areas of interest, and see in that areas of interest what are the things people do and how do they do it, and what are the popular frameworks in it, or how are the projects done using that, and understand those frameworks. How do you operate on frameworks? So this is Python, which is the bare bone requirement, and using this knowledge that you have acquired, we are going to use that in a framework or create your own framework someday. But yeah, to start with, you'll use some popular framework and create those projects, push it to GitHub. Again the same routine starts, right? Again, deploy your projects, put it on your portfolio, and you keep learning. It's a never ending process. Also, it's one major thing I want to point out is keep exploring. You might not find one thing interesting, but you might find the other thing interesting in Python ecosystem itself. I've already studied function, file handling, network, stack interface of SQL in school. Now, what type of knowledge they might teach on computer science mainly? Yeah, obviously, these are the things that are expected. Great that you have knowledge about networking as well right out of your college. I am from Andhra, so I'm from and I won't name it, but it's a college which is known for IIT's academy. So we didn't have any computer science, and it's great that right out of college you are knowing these things. So at this point, what you can expect in your computer science is more deeper understanding how to use these programs and different program paradigms, like what are the standard ways in which people solve problems, what are the better and efficient ways in which people solve problems. One problem can have multiple solutions, one better than the other. How to get to that better, that is one thing that you will learn, obviously. And also there are since you have understood how the function and file handling is done, awesome. Now you go one level up, something called as data structures. How does the data structures work? Data structures just basically means it's an object which knows how to do stuff. So use that. what are the different types of objects that are generally used in programming. Obviously, there is no certain set number of, because there can be data structures which are custom, and you write the object definition for it, basically the class for it. But what are the standard types, and how are it used, and which is better in what cases? Those things like that, you will learn computer science. And obviously a lot of different things. You get to learn about how the compilers work. So you have written a program, but it's running on something, right? How does it know? Say, for example, you're saying print hello world, and it prints hello world. How does it know that it has to print hello world to the console? What are the things that happen behind the scenes? How does a compiler handle that? Say, for example, print hello, you forgot to put the double quotes. It tells that, hey, I don't find a variable called hello, because it's not a string. It's when you don't put a string like double quotes, it means that it's a variable. It's not a variable, then how come? So how does the compiler knows that there's no variable named hello? So things like this, or if there's some syntax error that you opened a bracket but you didn't close the bracket, how does the compiler know that this is the issue with it, and it wants you, right? So how does this happen? So these are something called as compilers, which run behind converting your code into awesome machine level instructions. So how do those things work? How do project management happen? So software management happens. So things like it's a team of 20 people working on a project. How are tasks defined? What is a scrum? So these are things that you will learn, which will help you throughout in your career. Things like this you can expect. I'm not going to get into a discussion of Google versus Microsoft. Those both are great companies, and I loved working for both of them. How did you get interested in Python? So one thing is, obviously it's easy. It's easy to get started with. It helps you get quicker in terms of writing some code. If I have to test something, I can quickly open a .py and write my code and test if it's working or not. Do the same thing in other languages, I might have to put a little more effort. It's always a great language to study, and it has, as I've told you in the slides, there are a lot of amazing community. Because so now I know that if I'm stuck, I know that someone else is also stuck for the same reason, and I'll find a solution for it. So yes, so and that's how I started with Python, and it helped me with my DSA. Like in all my interviews, I used Python to write programs for the problems that I was asked. For the problems that I have asked in both my interviews. The problems. Okay. Do we have to learn more languages, or 2 to 3 are enough? Yeah. So one thing, right? Come on. I'll take it one level, one other level. So basically, your ability to learn, that is what makes companies to hire you. It's not that you know Python, that's why I'm hiring you. It's about that you can learn a new language. So is it enough to learn 2 to 3? Definitely. It's enough, well enough to get into it. So there is object-oriented programming, and there is none, like the other version. So one of which people usually select, one of which. So Python and C++. So these kind of things, when you put together, what happens is that some companies who know that you're very cheeky, and that if someone is asking you to write a quick sort, which doesn't happen very often, but you're completing it 2 lines, it doesn't feel that you haven't really thought through, because Python takes a lot of logic behind, and it'll help you to write that. One thing is, obviously it's better for you because you write less lines of code, but again, companies have to assess you, right? So some companies, not many, but some companies, again, asterisk, like star, bold, italic, underline, that none of these 2 companies that I worked for, Microsoft and Google, asked me not to use Python. Both allowed me to use Python, but some companies don't do. So that's why Python plus some other language is always a good option, in my opinion. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Brajit. Thank you, Manideep. Jiva Surya B, in which year you have graduated? I graduated from Amrita in 2020, from Amrita Coimbatore campus. That's why right before I joined, I have seen that wonderful campus of my own. A lot of memories. Yeah, it's from Etimade campus that I graduated from. JavaScript is never going to, at least the near future, it's never going to be out of date. It's always useful. There are a lot of frameworks on top of JavaScript. When it comes to UI or even for backend, there are a lot of, for backend, there's something called Node.js, using which you can write your backend services. And in the front, there are n number. Even the React that I'm working on, it's top of JavaScript. It's on top of JavaScript. It's a JavaScript library. React is basically a JavaScript library, which helps you to create UI. So yeah, JavaScript will always be useful, at least in the near future. I think we are a little bit, it's 7:01. If we don't have any questions, I think we can close it. I still will wait for a couple of minutes. So keep them coming.
Thank you, Mr. Harshavardhan. I think that's all from our side. Thank you for joining with us. I will see you on next IRO episode. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a very good day, you all. Thank you. Also, how do I leave them? Okay.